Okay, so just a quick follow up to the video I made yesterday. Again, the easiest way to solve this issue, again, because I was looking at the video, I was looking at some news where, I mean, people are out protesting in Minneapolis, right? And, you know, these ICE officers are, the people are talking, they're walking in the streets, whatever, you know, peaceful protest. And you got these ICE officers who are, in my opinion, you know, approaching a lot of these people who are protesting, many of them on the sidewalk, whatever. These officers, they don't have a ticket book or a summons book or a citation book to give you a ticket for spitting on the sidewalk, or, you know, these are like federal officers, right? You know, federal agents. You know, they don't have these municipalities with the citations and, you know, they don't have none of that. So a lot of these things they can't even enforce, right? But they walk up to these people. In many cases, they accost them. They're easily provoked, right? You're allowed to film police officers or any government official in the course of their duties, right? That means you can film them. However, the filming is, it seems that they're arguing that the filming is provoking them, right? One, if you're following behind an ICE officer in a vehicle, then you're not impeding, right? How can you impede if you're behind them, right? You know, some things make sense, some things don't make sense. If you're behind them, you're not impeding anything because you're behind them. You're allowed to drive on the public highways, public roadways. You can follow behind anybody you want to follow behind. It's a public. I mean, who say you follow behind them? You can be driving the same place to the same destination. You could follow behind them if you choose to. You could be lost and saying, let me follow behind this person so I can find my way. Who knows, right? It's not impeding. They're being filmed. You can film them in the course of their duties. The other thing I want to say is, if you're ever stopped by ICE, you're a U.S. citizen, right? You're going to tell them, one, I don't have to answer any questions, right? And I'm putting the cart before the horse. Let me say this. Have you ever heard of Terry stops, right? Terry stops, Terry v. Ohio, you know, there's two major tests, so to speak, or standards that, you know, the court is determined come out of Terry v. Ohio, right? You know, you can pat frisk a person, you know, the officers can, if they are coming up to you to investigate you for what they believe is reasonable articulable suspicion that you committed a crime or crime has been committed. And in the course of doing that, they look and they see what looks like to be a bulge in your pocket, and that bulge look like it could be a weapon. In that case, they can do a pat frisk, you know, while they're doing the investigation. That's clearly not what New York police do. They just walk right up to you and just assume, hey, I'm coming to investigate you and talk to you, so therefore I'm just going to pat frisk you. No, that's not Terry v. Ohio. Did you see a bulge in my pocket that made you believe that I had a weapon? That's one. You know, huge, big misunderstanding with that. You know, and then just to skip past, because I got to go to court, but there's a new thing. When the ICE officers come up to you and they approach you and they ask you the question, yes, it's a consensual encounter because anyone can ask you a question, right? It's free America, right? But these are known as KAVANAUGH stops, right? We have to call it what it is. It's not a citizenship stop. It is, but it's a KAVANAUGH stop because Customs Border Patrol is doing this more than 100 miles from the U.S. border. They can stop you within 100 miles of the U.S. border, right? Customs Border Patrol should stop you on the border and question you on the border. They have a lot more leeway on the border. They can make stops inside of the United States, and they can have these checkpoints and different things. Their rights, what they can do is even more limited at that point. However, outside of 100 miles, what are we talking about? Customs Border Patrol, where's the border at? What are you doing over here? You know, what are we talking about? Let's be real. So there's a lot of issues, Customs Border Patrol. You can't even write me a ticket for spitting or whatever. You don't even have tickets for these citations. And I'm presuming this because they're federal agents, Customs Border Patrol. What does their ticket book look like? What citations can they issue, right? That's something I should look into, honestly, before even putting that out there. But presumably, whatever. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, or whoever wants to correct me if I'm wrong, if you are legal, beagle, whatever. But for the most part, these guys out here approaching people, asking them questions. You can do that. But if they're doing it based on the way you look, your color, that you speak a certain way, that's called a KAVANAUGH stop. Brett Kavanaugh is one of the United States Supreme Court justices. When they were on their break and they were, vacationing and doing whatever it is that they do, they have an emergency docket, and on that emergency docket, they deal with certain issues because, people file claims, people approach the court, they have issues, and some things need to be handled. And in layman's terms, the court deal with those things pretty quickly, and they did with this issue right here. The issue was, hey, can ICE just come up to a person and stop them? Brett Kavanaugh pretty much summed it up. The court all voted in favor that they can do it and allow them to do it. And it's a temporary thing until they actually pull the case and deal with the case. It's a temporary thing. It's an emergency, order, so to speak. And so the court's pretty much okayed ICE to be able to do this. And based on your language, based on the color of your skin, based on the way you look. And Brett Kavanaugh said something to the effect of, hey, it's just a minor inconvenience to a United States citizen if someone should stop you. They can just show their ID or whatever the case may be. A United States Supreme Court justice said that, he allowed for you to just be stopped based on how you look and said it was a minor inconvenience. So we call that Kavanaugh stops. So if they stop you and they ask you, hey, are you a U.S. citizen? And it's based on the way you look, based on your language, that you look like you're from another country. You look like you're anything else except, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, history books back when we were young, they would call them white Anglo-Saxon Saxon Protestants, WASPs for short or whatever. If you look like you're anything except white, then they're doing that, then that's called a Kavanaugh stop. All right? It's like a Terry stop, so to speak, but it's based on race, color, ethnicity, it's biased. And he allowed for that. The court, the Supreme Court of the land, United States Supreme Court allowed for that. So that's what's going on right now. However, if they should stop you, right, you should be able to say if you're a U.S. citizen, I don't have to answer that question. Am I free to leave? Right? If you're free to leave, then there's nothing to talk about. Am I being detained? The minute they knock on your car window, they surround your car, am I being detained? What is the crime? And no, I refuse to answer that question. And if they persist in taking you, and you don't want to go through the process, you can tell them I'm a United States citizen. I'm a United States citizen, That's what you tell them. And you keep saying that and say nothing else until you get to where you need to go in front of a judge or a magistrate, whoever it should be. You keep saying that. If they take you to a detention center and you see somebody with some stripes, somebody look like they got some authority, then that's when you say, hey, I'm a United States citizen. These guys got it wrong. Okay, these guys have only had 47 weeks of training, 47 because Trump is the 47th president and he only wants to have, my understanding is that they only have 47 weeks of training, or that they removed whatever training they had. They diminished it by 47 days or whatever. So they don't have the proper training. And they're out here just going crazy. Again, all of this can be stopped if the governor of Minnesota and the mayor of Minnesota as well do a press conference along with the congressmen and representatives and say, officers, if you see anybody breaking the law, I don't care if they're conducting an investigation. If they're breaking the law, you have an obligation and a duty to arrest them. And if the officers are there on scene and they see people's rights being violated, people being grabbed and beat up, no people being seized, no arrest warrants, people standing on the sidewalk filming, and people these guys walking up to them, grabbing them. The officers have an obligation to arrest these guys. It's just that simple. So we have to put the demand on the officers to arrest them, but how we do it, you have to tell your governor, you have to tell your mayor, you have to tell your congresspersons, and hey, why are you guys not telling the police officers to arrest them when they break the law and they attack us? If you don't tell them to protect us, then who's going to protect us? Who's left to protect us? It's the police, right? So you're paying taxes for the police to protect you from someone kidnapping you. It's no such thing as, oh, but that's an agency conducting an investigation, they can break the law. No, if you see them break the law, you stop them. As a law enforcement officer, you know the law. As a law enforcement officer, hey, just show me the warrant, make sure you're not kidnapping nobody. Officers do it all the time. How do you think the officers come across people who are not real police officers or not real federal officers? They ask questions. They look at what they do. Well, just show me your warrant, and once they determine you're a real officer, they let you go. But they ask questions and find out that you're not a real police officer, then they arrest you for impersonating a police officer. But how are we gonna know, you guys are not even going to do that. You got your guys standing on the same side, American citizens being beat, and the only thing you have to say as a governor, the only thing you have to say as a mayor is arrest them. Tell the officers to arrest them. Call the chief of police in there. Are you going to order these officers to arrest them when they see them breaking the law? Even if they're out on investigation. All of this will come to a stop. It will come to a stop. The second they start doing it, and they don't have to worry about Stephen Miller or whoever talking about, hey, you guys are doing an investigation. Anybody impede your investigation, they will feel the full force of the United States government, blah, blah, blah. If you broke the law and they broke the law, you arrest them. And when they come tell you, hey, you're impeding investigation, no, he broke the law and he's being charged. State charges. And no one can save him from a state charge. No federal government, no president. It's a state charge. So whatever the charge is, they'll do the time for. That's what has to happen. So I just want to share that. Excuse me for that. And yeah, so just wanted to inform the people, trying to do my little two cents, add my 2 cents to and do my part. There's a lot going on out here. Sometimes I don't even really try to watch the news, but the little bit that I do get when I see people just being beat up and tossed in the streets, and it's no police officers coming up to it. No police officers in view of the camera whatsoever, but you read and hear that they were somewhere around it, and no one stopped to say, hey, you can't do that. Listen, ICE is wrong, but these police officers are wrong too. The mayor's wrong too. The governor's wrong too, because they're allowing it to go on. It takes for us to start saying, hey, you guys have to arrest them and lock them up, and you're not doing it. And not to the police officers. You're not going to really get too much with that. It's to the mayor, to the governor, to the congresspersons and representatives. That's who you have to say it to. Tell them. Tell your people start doing their job, or you guys don't deserve to be in office. This is going on too long without you telling them. Arrest them if they break the law. Arrest them if they're attacking U.S. citizens. So what are you telling me? There's no remedy for U.S. citizens for getting beat up by law enforcement, innocently walking down the block, stopped, these KAVANAUGH stops, and no one can, and you can only file a claim to go to federal court and sue. Nah, you can tell the police to arrest them, and so that's my 2 cents. See you guys later.